The year you turn 71, the government stops letting you decide when to touch your RRSP. By December 31st of that year, it has to become something called a RRIF, a Registered Retirement Income Fund. So what exactly is a RRIF? It's the account your RRSP legally turns into once that deadline hits. It holds the exact same investments you already had, the same stocks, bonds, or mutual funds, and the money keeps growing tax-deferred, exactly like it did inside the RRSP. Nothing about the money itself changes overnight. What changes is the direction it's allowed to flow. An RRSP is built for putting money in. A RRIF is built only for taking money out. You can never contribute to a RRIF again, not one more dollar, ever. And once it becomes a RRIF, you're required to pull money out of it every single year for the rest of your life, whether you need the cash or not. Whether the market is up or down that year, miss the conversion deadline completely and the CRA doesn't send a fine. It treats your entire RRSP as income in one single year, all at once. That's straight from the CRA's own rules on RRSP maturity. Most people at least know that deadline exists. What almost nobody plans for is what happens after you cross it. Here's the part that catches people off guard. The minimum amount you're forced to withdraw isn't a flat dollar figure. It's a percentage of your account. And that percentage climbs every single year, automatically, no matter what the market did that year, no matter how you feel about it. At 71, the CRA's prescribed rate is 5.28%. By 75, it's 5.82%. By 80, it's 6.82%. By 85, it's 8.51%. By 90, it's almost 12%. By 95, it caps at 20% every year for the rest of your life. 1/5 of whatever's left, forced out, every single year on autopilot. Let's make that real with numbers. Say you convert a $500,000 RRSP into a RRIF at 72. That year's minimum withdrawal is around $27,000. Not optional. It comes out and lands on your tax return as income, whether you spend a dollar of it or just move it straight into a regular savings account the same afternoon. Now watch what happens if you never touch it beyond the minimum, and the account just holds steady around that same size. At 80, 6.82% of a similar balance is well over $30,000 a year, forced out. At 90, closing in on 12%, it's pulling out a chunk that would have felt unthinkable back when you were 71 and this all started. The percentage doesn't care what you actually need that year. It just climbs. That's the part people miss. The government isn't forcing you to spend your money. It's forcing you to be taxed on it. And that tax hit doesn't stay contained to your own bracket. If you watched the last episode on the GIS Trap, you already know OAS starts getting clawed back once your net income crosses roughly $93,000 to $95,000 a year. Every dollar your RRIF forces out counts toward that number. And if you're still collecting GIS on a lower income, it can count against that too. Picture two retirees. Same nest egg, same age, same starting income. The first one converts their whole RRSP into a RRIF at 71 and does nothing else, just lets the government's schedule run. The second one spends a little time before 71 actually planning around the withdrawal curve. 10 years later, the first one has been quietly pushed past the OAS clawback line by a withdrawal percentage that just kept climbing on its own, year after year, without a single extra dollar of spending to show for it. The second one hasn't, because they saw the curve coming and built their income around it instead of just reacting to whatever the CRA table said that year. Same savings, same government rules. Completely different tax outcome, 10 years apart. That's the trap. Why does this exist at all? It's worth understanding because it's not random. Every dollar in an RRSP was never taxed on the way in, and it's grown for decades without being taxed along the way either. That deferral has to end at some point, or the government would be letting people shelter income from tax forever. The RRIF is the mechanism that forces the deferral to finally close out. Most people just never see the shape of that curve coming until they're already living inside it, year after year, watching the percentage climb. There's also a quieter trap hiding in how the tax actually gets collected. On your minimum withdrawal, the bank doesn't hold anything back at source. No withholding tax at all on that portion. It just gets added to your income and shows up as a bill when you file. Pull out $1 more than the minimum, though, and the bank is required to start withholding tax immediately, right at the time of withdrawal. Plenty of retirees assume the RRIF is handling their tax for them automatically. On the minimum amount, it isn't. That's based on the CRA's own rules on RRIF withholding. So what actually helps? First, the age election. If your spouse or common law partner is younger than you, you're allowed to calculate your minimum withdrawal using their age instead of your own. Younger age on the calculation, lower percentage, smaller forced withdrawal, and it stays smaller every single year going forward for as long as the RRIF exists. This is a one-time choice, made the moment the RRIF is set up, so it has to be made correctly the first time. There's no going back and fixing it 2 years later. Second, income smoothing, sometimes called a meltdown strategy. Some advisors recommend withdrawing a bit more than the legal minimum in the years right after retirement, before CPP and OAS have both kicked in, while your income and your tax bracket are naturally lower than they'll ever be again. You pay a little more tax now, while the rate is cheap, so there's less left sitting in the RRIF to be forced out later at a much higher rate on a much higher balance. Third, and this is the one almost nobody hears about, the money you're forced to withdraw doesn't have to just sit in a checking account doing nothing. If you've got unused TFSA contribution room, that after-tax RRIF withdrawal can go straight back in and keep growing, just tax-free from that point forward instead of tax-deferred like it was before. Fourth, you don't have to convert the entire RRSP into a RRIF in one shot. You're allowed to convert it in pieces, spreading the trigger across a couple of years instead of dumping the whole balance into RRIF status on one single deadline. For a large RRSP, that alone can keep a big income spike from landing all in one tax year and pushing you somewhere you didn't need to go. None of this makes the RRIF disappear. You're still required to take money out on a schedule the government sets, whether that particular year actually fits your life or not. That part never goes away for anyone. But the size of the tax hit, and whether it quietly drags you across an OAS clawback line or a GIS reduction you never saw coming, that part is still yours to manage. Only if you plan for it before 71. Not after. This is the second trap in this series. The first one caught people who didn't have enough saved. This one catches people who did everything right, who saved diligently for decades, who followed all the advice and still get blindsided by exactly how fast the government makes them take it back out once the age arrives. There's a growing run of these on this channel now, one Canadian retirement trap at a time. Real Canadian money, explained plainly,